So we've got a lot of people that are familiar. I'm just going to post our responses to the whiteboard here. Some familiar, some implemented. I know I saw a post, someone said that they've done it in their brick and mortar classroom. And can you all hear me? I want to make sure I'm coming through loud and clear. Okay. Awesome. I do have a little bit of a cold, so bear with me. I may have to pause to have a drink of tea as we're going here. But go ahead and hopefully you've already done your audio setup. The Dropbox, and let me place this link in chat for you as well, is right there. And then warm-up activity, I'll give you 2 minutes to go through and scroll to the next slide. And if you are a high school teacher, initial in blue next to the quote that resonates with you. If you're a middle school teacher, green. If you're a K-5 teacher, purple. If you're an administrator, initial in orange. Or if you are none of the above, initial in gray. And just as a reminder, the colors are, the key is right up at the top of that screen. So blue, high school, middle school, green, K-5, purple, orange, admin, gray, other. Oh, and if you are a 6th grade teacher and you're an elementary 6th grade teacher, you can go ahead and initial in purple. All right, thanks. So we are on our quote slide. These are all from a framework for K through 12 science education. And I see kind of a lot of choices in these middle two right here. Anyone want to share their thoughts or ideas on this just for the next about 30 seconds?
I'll go. I chose now more than ever we can make an essential case that every American citizen should understand science and engineering, and I see that in many instances in our day-to-day life, and that resonates with me, particularly as we learn more about what affects our own environment. I think that's really important in becoming an educated citizen.
Thanks, Summer, and thanks for sharing in the chat as well. And yeah, I think we bring our own experiences to the classroom, and our students do as well, very much so. And so it's important to remember that when we're teaching. And I think the Next Generation Science Standards do a really nice job with that today. All right. So our abstract for today is we're going to be working through together to practice one of the next generation science standard practices in our virtual environment, which is modeling in the classroom through whiteboarding. We will engage as students in this 60-minute session working through an example of what modeling entails in a virtual environment, implementing the next generation science standards. And so our learning objectives are to implement the next generation science practice of modeling in the virtual classroom, and also engaging students in collaborative discussion in the virtual classroom using whiteboarding, and to increase rigor in the classroom through student discussion. Now, if you were in the opening speaker session, this really aligns with what he was talking about, because 100% what this session is about is increasing rigor, questioning, allowing a space for students to explain their own thinking and bringing their experiences to the classroom with them. So my name's Amy Sterling. It's strange because I'm usually on the webcam the entire time when I teach, and I'm used to doing that. So since we have so many people in the room, I'm not going on the webcam right now. But I began teaching in Los Angeles Unified School District in 2009 after changing careers. And then I moved back to Michigan to be closer to family, and I started working for Michigan Virtual Charter Academy. And initially I was the only high school science teacher, and so I was teaching every subject. And now there are 6 of us, and so many of them are in the room here, so thanks for coming, guys. And last year I also served as the interim assistant principal for 7th through 12th grade. I have a business degree from Hillsdale College in Michigan, and my secondary teaching credential in biology and general sciences from California State University, Northridge. And I'm currently working towards my master's in educational leadership at Grand Valley State University here in Michigan. I love to play volleyball, go to the beach. Here's a picture of the beach, although this is not what it looks like right now. I just was there on Monday, and there are giant icebergs all over here. It's pretty cool. But same beach right down the street. And I love to make jewelry, knit, and spend time with my family. Zachary, did you go to Hillsdale? And there are my 2 kids, Callie and Ryder, sledding in our backyard. So a little bit about myself. Our outcome is upon completion of the session, participants will demonstrate an understanding of the practical application of modeling instruction in the virtual world in their own professional practice according to the modeling instruction self-evaluation rubric. Yeah, the beaches are actually really nice in Michigan, but my dad likes to say we like to keep them secret so no one comes to visit. Yeah, Holland, that's where I live. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to read through this self-evaluation rubric and just highlight not on the board, but just make a mental note. You can take some notes on a sheet of paper, a scratch piece of paper, and just think about where you're at for the next 2 minutes. So during the session, I ask that you participate as a student. You're going to pretend like you're a student. Your drawings and questions should be what you think a student might draw, ask, or discuss. And at the end of each of the 2 lessons, we'll have time to ask questions in teacher mode. But it's really helpful to try and participate in this as a student would. All right, part 1 is a lesson that I do, just a little background before we get started with my students. I did this year at the very beginning of the school year. This is like the first lesson. Oh, Laura, it may just take a second to load. It looks like there's a little bit of lag for some people. Yeah, sometimes it takes a second to load, especially when we have so many people in here. So I'm going to file transfer the student teacher talk moves bookmark to you now. This is also in the Dropbox for you as well. And you'll want to keep these in mind as you work in your groups. So anyone want to read our objective for today? Or target? Go ahead and raise your hand. Any volunteers? Go ahead.
Today I am drawing practical diagrams using evidence from the experiment so that I can develop from experimental evidence the law of conservation of system mass. I'll know if I got it if I can create a particle diagram that explains what is happening in the demonstration.
Thank you. Nice job. You'll have to go into your settings. So edit at the top, drop down, and preferences. Thank you. And then I just also added down here the next generation science standard, which in Michigan, it's HSPS 1-7. Use mathematical representations to support the claim that atoms and therefore mass are conserved during a chemical reaction. So go ahead and get ready. Today in class, you should have a pencil and paper or Word document to take notes on. And we're not going to do the green check now just because I want to keep up your polling responses. I like to be able to see those from the start. And we are going to move on. But normally with students, I would wait until I get green checks from all. Participation check. All right, while we are whiteboarding today, this class is going to be different than any other class you've taken online. Let's talk about why. Yes. Lupe, can you go ahead and exit Megan 1 from the session? So we are going to have a lot of whiteboard discussions. And we'll talk about what those look like in just a second. But you're going to use those student talk bookmark every day in class. I also have really high expectations for each of you, and I know that you will do well in this class. My goal is to teach you to think in a scientific way and to be able to give evidence for your thoughts. And so we're going to talk about what this looks like, thinking in a scientific way. Your role in this class will be to participate fully, to show your thoughts, explain your thoughts, and talk to your classmates. My role will be more of a facilitator. I hope that you also will be facilitators yourself using those student talk moves, which are really helpful. There's teacher talk moves on the back of that sheet as well, and I do send this to my students. And so you can use the front or the back when you're participating. We will be rotating groups throughout the year, so you will get a chance to work with everybody in the class. And our schedule will be somewhat tentative because I'm going to see where you're at with your understanding, and we may have to change some of our schedule based on what we're doing in class. So let's first talk about our norms when we're whiteboarding. And together we're going to work on this. We'll spend about 2 minutes right now. And this is the norms we should follow as we work in groups to draw explanations, show our thinking, and write. So the one thing that I wanted to say is that nothing goes on the whiteboard, and I should say this is the final whiteboard that you want to present until everyone agrees in the group. Yeah. Yes, I had to add norm up there. So again, the final whiteboard. You can add anything you'd like to the whiteboard, and then once you all have agreed on it, you're good to go. So you can add things. Remember, that's the great thing about whiteboards, and change them. Go ahead and add anything else to the whiteboard. Raise your hand if you'd like to talk about it on the mic, or type in a chat other norms you'd like to have while we whiteboard in groups. Yep, I like that too, Summer. Be respectful. Go ahead and add yours to the screen. Be positive. Don't scribble. That must be from a K-8, yeah. We get some of that in the high school, but usually we don't have to remind high school kids about that. But yep, it's definitely going to depend on the grade level. Everyone participate. And I have some strategies for that too. Don't write over your partner's work. Yes, don't put yourself away because it's difficult. And so I do have a tech issues room, I call it. And if students are away for more than 5 minutes, they go to the tech issues room to solve their tech issues. Think. Begin with the end in mind. Yes, I like that. Use your typing tool. All right. Love the norms. Okay, so we're going to move on. We're going to start with the candle demo. Now, normally I put this on, I app share or I do my webcam and do this demonstration live as well. In this case, I wanted to make sure that everybody was able to see it, and I wasn't sure how many people were going to be here. So I have the candle demo on SafeShare. I also have it on YouTube if SafeShare is not working for you. So go ahead and watch it. It's just like 20 seconds. All right, you should have watched that. Hold on to your questions and we can just add them to the end so then we have them all in one spot where I can answer them. All right, so SafeShare or the YouTube. Pay attention. What did you see happening? You're going to be working in a group of 4 to draw what you think is happening at the particle level. And be ready to talk about your thinking in the whole group. I'm excited to hear what you're thinking. Yes, I can put that in chat. There's the SafeShare. Here is the YouTube as well. And I also have it in slow-mo, which is really cool to watch as well. Here's the slow-mo version. All right, we are going to work in groups. So let's just talk about this for a minute because this is our first time whiteboarding together. So when you get into the room, I will paste this slide in your room for you. You'll write down which breakout room number you're in, who your group members are, and choose roles for your group. The other 2 people that you don't list here as a drawer or presenter will help by adding their thoughts via the mic or the chat as the person who is drawing works. If you'd like, you can have 2 drawers and 2 presenters. That's okay too. And draw particle drawings as to what you think is happening at the particle level. Be ready to explain your thinking to the class. And then also, just a note for you all, note which room you're in because you're going to be moving back to that same room later for another activity, so pay attention. You may want to write it down which room you're in once we split. Any questions before we move into breakouts? All right. Moving into breakouts in, oh, I did this in my high school. You can really pretend to be middle school, high school kids. Good question, George. All right, moving into breakouts in 3, 2, 1. Hi, Kim. If you got kicked out or just entered, you can pick one of the rooms to enter. You're working in breakout rooms. You may want to pick one of the rooms that have just 3 people in it. All right. Heard some really great stuff going on in the rooms. I copied a couple of slides to the main room. It was pretty cool. Good questions I heard, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time at the end talking about the teacher mode. But first of all, this group, breakout room 22, do you guys want to present? I'll give you about 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll go. So this was the picture, room 22, Drew. And we were showing that the flame of the match was actually still in the smoke, which contained wax vapor, which is what relit. And thinking like a student, we went and Googled what was happening, because that's what my students do to me. So that's what we're showing here. So we actually drew that picture. That's our own artwork.
Awesome. And in this case, I would remind you to use your student talk moves if you have questions for this group, other ideas. Other groups could bring up what they did, and so I'm going to pull up the next group, group number 2, and just selected a couple of people to talk. Go ahead, group number 2. I'm not hearing anything. They may have not have their mics set up, but in this group, I saw. Oh, and go ahead.
Oh, I am so sorry. I didn't realize. I came back in. I heard something about go ahead with the thing, and I didn't hear who it was. What we were talking about for our explanation was that as the flame is burning, it's melting the paraffin, and then it's turning it from a solid to a liquid, and then a liquid to a gas. The gas is what burns because the molecules get moving really fast, and so the gas starts coming up, and that's what is burning. Then, when you blow out the candle itself, there's still gas that's around that candle, so there's still gaseous paraffin that's right around that. So when you put the match close to it again, it ignites that, and you can see the spark moving down back to the wick again.
Thank you. Yep. Really clear explanation. Does anyone else have any thoughts for this group, or can anyone explain what they did in another way? Shy people today. But normally that's what I would do. I would ask students if anybody could repeat what this group explained, or talk about it in a different way. Can they think of anything else? Would anyone like to add on? I know, right? Yes. So going back here, and I would usually, it depends on the size of your class too. At the end, I do this, thinking about today's lesson. So I know we've got a lot of people in here, but you can write on the board if you can find a spot, and what you thought. Describe something a classmate said that helped deepen your thinking. How did the new information change what I think? Typically, I will do some sort of a summary as a teacher at the end. What did we come up with? What's probably a good way to draw particles when we're talking about a particle diagram? In this case, when we looked at this second slide, I saw that there were dots drawn here. In this case, I saw also some kind of smoky things. In the first case, I saw squiggly lines. But does it make sense? Can everyone agree that drawing dots to show particles is what makes sense? Can everyone agree on that? All right. So really, and this is a slide I do at the end with my students, what they thought initially, describe something a classmate said that helped deepen your thinking, and how did the new information change what I think, and then thinking, and I will uncheck the follow so they can go back to the objectives and see if they met them. Now, a couple of notes here because I heard some interesting comments in the breakout rooms about the directions. Modeling instruction is very purposeful in what your kind of secret teacher question is and what you would like students to get to, what the goal of the lesson is for you as a teacher. And so it's important to know where you're going and also what you might get from students. And I tend to not give them direction or model what I want them to do, because I want them to bring to the table what they already know about something and what their current understanding is of something, and that's a modeling instruction technique. That's done on purpose so that I can really see what the students are bringing, what misconceptions they might have, and where I can go with their understanding from there. So that is definitely done on purpose. And I want them to be able to explain and talk about what they think about something without my influence or explaining what I want them to get out of it. So that's a purposeful part of this lesson. And it feels uncomfortable, and it feels like you're not really sure what you're going to get from the students, and sometimes they're really unsure about what they're supposed to be doing. But encouraging them to talk about what they're thinking or draw what they're thinking is really, it's really a good thing. And that's part of the goal of this first lesson, is getting their thinking on the board. And then that particles are drawn as dots or circles or something like that. So it's really a basic just intro lesson. I actually don't tell them what's going on. They usually don't know that that's gas or that that's wax particles evaporating. And so I will leave that open for them to research if they'd like, but and then they get really interested and they're like, I still don't know what's going on. Other teacher questions, you can add those to the board here. And hopefully that kind of clarified some of the, like, I probably wouldn't do this, and the idea is not necessarily, you might not do this exact lesson, but you know, the idea of students being able to draw their thinking and explain their thinking. I heard some groups say, I'm not really sure, are we supposed to just draw a picture or write an explanation? And both, all of the above, whatever makes sense to students. If they are a words person and they do better with writing, if they are someone who wants to get on the mic and discuss it, it accounts for all of those different learning styles. And so that's one of the really nice things about this, is that they can all use their strengths and participate in a way that makes sense for their own learning. Do I explain what's happening at the end of the lesson? Sometimes we do a summary. It depends on what my goal is. I like to do a, you know, can we all agree that this makes sense? I do a really purposeful sequencing of the boards. Thanks. And so, yep, it's in the PowerPoint in the Dropbox. And so I choose which slides to have the students present, first, second, third, fourth. The last one would be the one that I choose that is the one that really is where I want the students to get to. How do you promote students interacting with children and not just answering? That's a good question. This is hard, but a lot of it just takes some time and fostering trust and getting them to understand that this is what we're going to be doing every day in class, and they start interacting and talking with each other. Oh, I put the slides in the Dropbox at the beginning, but let me grab that link again. Here is the link for the Dropbox that has everything from the presentation. Sometimes I will have them read or preview something, but a lot of times I like for them to come with just their current understanding, and then we go from there. video content, well, I made the video myself. Where do I find them? I find a lot of them on PhET, and we're actually going to do one next, Colorado PhET Labs. And yeah, they're virtual simulations that are awesome. Lessons, I have 45 minutes to an hour lessons. The size of the class that I taught this with was a small class. It was 16 students, and so it was not large. And it does get different when you're teaching a really large class. Yeah, it definitely is. BBC, yeah, they get really good at the BBC skills and participation. The small groups are meant to have, yeah, with 100, you can do it with 100. It's just going to be, you're going to have to really pick out which and sequence your boards specifically. 40 is definitely doable. How do I minimize tech issues? I try to try and plan as much as I can. So if my webcam I know might be an issue, then I'll record a video ahead of time to share with them as well. Safe share, YouTube, try and do it all so that if they are saying they don't have, I'll set up a teleconference for kids who don't have mics, and so they can't say that they don't have a microphone. I'll do both, link, web push, whatever is working. All right, moving on because we've only got a few minutes left. I know there's a lot of, I have used the DocCam. It doesn't work as well as the webcam does. So yeah, there's a bit of a lag. I've tried other things that apps that work with my iPhone that there's a lot of lag too. So of recording ahead of time and doing a YouTube or SafeShare has worked the best along with the webcam in my experience. All right, the next one, since we only have a few minutes, we're just gonna do this real quick, and I'll just show you what I typically do with this. But in this case, and we have 86 people, so I can go on the webcam and we'll see if this works. Hi guys. So welcome to chemistry. First of all, you're a high school chemistry student now, and I've got this syringe, and it is sealed. It's attached to this gas pressure sensor. Some of you may have seen this before, and it's sealed. It's sealed over here. No, nothing can get in or out. So think about how you might alter the pressure in a sealed syringe like this. So think about that. Usually it kind of comes in and out for the video. Yes, how would you alter the pressure, change the volume? So Cassie, will you go ahead and write down what you're thinking on a Post-it note? Oh, good question. You can push the plunger. It's sealed, but you can push or pull the plunger. Heat it up or cool it down. Change the volume. Oh yeah, that's true. Drive to a higher altitude. You guys are thinking about it like scientists. I love it. Seriously, someone who lives by the mountains, right? Heat it up, cool it down. All right, good thoughts. Today, here are our objectives. We're going to go through that quickly since we only have a few minutes left. And so normally what I do, and since we only have a few minutes, I would have students go into breakout rooms, write their predictions down about what they think this graph will look like when we're talking about volume versus pressure. And then, after they discuss with their group and draw their graph, explain your reasoning for the graph's appearance. So over here, why did you draw your graph like that? Can you explain it? And so making that prediction. So we've only got a few minutes, so we're not going to go into breakout rooms right now, but making a prediction in science is really important. It gives them a stance. It helps them to remember what they're thinking about it. And it also just puts it in writing for them. I did. I have lab supplies from ordering them. And then after they make their predictions, then I have this FETLab simulation. And this is, you open it with Java. Some kids do have some tech issues with it. But what you would do is click on the play button, open it with Java, no need to update if it asks. Give me a green check. I'm going to change your polling type. Once you have that open, and in your group, you're going to discuss how you might measure volume versus pressure using this specific simulation. And then I've got a slide that has where you would write down your 6 to 7 data points using only volume and pressure variables. Draw a graph based on your data that you collected, and then create a particle drawing to present to the rest of class. So this is something we do after we've done a lot of work with drawing particles, what they look like and how students draw them, and then a gallery walk at the end. So I've got breakout room slides with the simulation directions right here up at the top, a spot for data, and then space to draw their graph and their particle drawing. And then at the bottom is a spot where I leave open for this banner for comments during the gallery walk at the end. All right, so since we don't have time to do part 2, we're not going to do it now, but I have done this with students looking at a lot of different variables: pressure, volume, temperature, amount of particles, and so we can look at how changing one variable affects the other and what it does, and then does their information match their prediction. Now the student talk moves is something that I ask them to use and post their comments and questions in the gallery walk using those student talk moves specifically, just to get used to using them. And then I always do thinking about today's lesson, and then questions. Okay, so sorry this is so quick because we spent a lot of time on the first one. It does take a bit of time to do. Questions about this one, and it's very similar. You go into breakout rooms, have students write down what they're thinking. They do have a hard time with this one sometimes. Yeah, I love this simulation. It's really nice, and it really shows those particles, so it gives them a good idea of what they should draw in their particle drawings as well, and what they might look like. Some kids do have some tech issues when you're doing things like this, and I'll open up app sharing and have the kids app share, have one that it works, have them app share it to the rest of their group, and collect. Yes, there are biology ones as well. If you look on the left, when you're in that simulation, it says biology. It also says by grade level, so there's elementary, middle, high school, university level. This one is a physics one, but hand in hand with chemistry as well. And you can click on that on the left. Oh, good question. Do you do these activities after you present a lesson, or is this a whole lesson? Is this like a flipped lesson plan where they read the lesson first and then come and do the activity? I have them do the activity. So the whole idea with the Next Generation Science Standards and Instructional Practices is to start with a simulation or a demonstration and have the students work on what's their understanding of it, and then discussion and group work to work towards your goal. So instead of having the kids read about something and have the ideas already in their heads, coming with what they know about it and then talking about it, and then using this simulation or this demonstration to build on their understanding. And you'll see a lot of misconceptions come out, which is really helpful as a teacher to be able to have those misconceptions out there, so then you can go from there This part 2, yeah, this was a whole lesson. This was a lesson, an hour lesson. Sometimes when I do this back here, the presentation part, if we don't have time for the gallery walk or they don't have time to do all of this in one class, I may do it on day 2, which is why that the time for the tentative schedule, like we talked about at the beginning, that has to be tentative because sometimes it's hard to do all of this and have time for the kids to process it in one lesson. All right, awesome questions. All right, I want to leave some time for next steps. How many sessions do I teach in a week? I teach 20 live hours a week. So, no, I teach every day. So chemistry I teach every day for an hour, and then I teach anatomy and physiology, earth science, and an elective class as well. And so, yeah, it depends on the teacher in our school, but all of our teachers teach synchronously 20 hours. All right, next steps I would say, we try to do as much of the work in the class as we can. So depending on what the lesson is, I may mark it off for them as, having done it. Like for chemistry, there's all these gas law quizzes and things. I may just give them the points if they come in and do their whiteboards. And then those are their points for their quiz. And so, yes, everybody has homeroom students as well in the high school. So the next thing I would say is to go to a modeling PD if you can. If you're in Michigan, we've got Michigan modeling instruction. This is awesome. I went to this last summer and it definitely changed my instructional practices, but there it is. If you click on events, there are a lot of upcoming 2017 workshops. They are provided by a grant from the state, which is awesome. So, and it says for Michigan, the 15-day workshops are $80 a day. So you can also get grad credits and sketches. And for the 10-day workshops, $80 a day as well. So you get paid and it's free and it's awesome. So if you can do it, I will be going to the biology one in Southwest Michigan, and then, well, that's the other thing. So if you live in another state, no, you have to live in Michigan for those. Modelinginstruction.org right there, I know, is the American Modeling Teacher Association has workshops, and you can click on that upcoming workshops link. And they do have some virtual ones. They suggest that you go to an in-person one to start and then do some of the virtual ones. Those are awesome though. The modeling workshops, and it says modeling workshop summer 2017, are definitely the top-notch ones. Those are the ones that I went to that really are amazing. The next thing I would say is read 5 practices for task-based discussions in science. There's also one in math if you're a math teacher. They actually wrote the math one first. This one is awesome. The opening speaker talked a lot about some of these same things. This student talk moves, which I file transferred to you and put in, it's also in the Dropbox, comes a lot from that 5 practices book. That last slide on discussing what students think and describe something a classmate said to help deepen your thinking, that comes from this 5 practices book as well. Thanks, Cassie. And this is an awesome read, and it really talks about deepening your level of discussion in your class. What does that look like? Using whiteboards from small group to whole group discussion is really helpful. And that's a way for you to get students thinking and participating fully in the discussions in small groups, because some will not. We know that our students are in our school a lot of times because they have anxiety issues and they have issues with participating. And so giving them that opportunity to participate in a small group, and then maybe some of them will want to participate in the whole group is helpful because that gets a lot of the kids in. And then just try it. Try using modeling instruction in a small group to whole group whiteboarding for students to explain and support their arguments with evidence. You don't have to change your entire practice, but if you try using it, it's really cool to see what the students do. And they really like talking with each other and explaining their own thinking. My references are from the American Modeling Teaching Association, also the Michigan one that I just shared with you. This book is awesome, this 5 practices. And then in the Dropbox, I also have an interesting read on modeling instruction, and I think this will clarify a lot on some of your questions you may have. I have the Student Teacher Talk bookmark and examples of PowerPoints where I've used modeling instruction if you'd like to see what more of those look like. My information is here, asterling@k12.com. There's my cell phone number and my office number. I'm also on Twitter if you want to follow me. I don't do a whole lot of posting on Twitter, but I follow a lot of modeling instruction teachers just to see what cool stuff they're doing. And I'll uncheck follow at the end as well. But thank you for coming and for your interest in this session. Give yourself an internet high five. And leave comments if you have any. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye. I got the sticky note slide from one of my other teachers, Colleen Kale. And so I always borrow stuff from other teachers that I like. It does. Yep, good question. If you scroll over to the right, there is an attendance survey, and I can paste it in chat as well. There. You have to use the letter A typing tool, and then you have to make sure that you do an HTTP in front of it with your ://. And then once you click enter, it'll be a live link. No problem. Leslie, I'm not sure what your question is. Is what you typed for the link. What do you mean?
She had asked how to create a hyperlink, and I was just distracted and asked, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't know how to do that. What were you saying?
In any way with these mailboxes. And if you want to raise your hand, and I can call on you, or you can put it in the chat, either way, but just take a second, look at this. How do you see math, and how do you see it? Absolutely, and look, there's so many differences already, going from geometry to simply looking at the numbers that are on the mailbox. Sometimes with our first graders, they would look at the big versus the small, and they would simply come up with an addition equation. They would say something 3 plus 3 small plus 2 medium, and they would give me the total. Going a little more advanced for the upper grades, gosh, let's imagine I put 2 letters in each mailbox. What would that be? So many different things. The kids really get into it. It started and they would talk about color and that, But as we've gone on, they see more and more math. And what gets really exciting is when they send me a picture saying, hey, I saw this and this was real, and I saw this type of thing, and we can share it. So that was just one thing that we've used and has really been fun for our groups. And thank you for all those great ideas I see in the chat. So I'll go ahead and I am Julia West. This is me. I am so used to using the camera that I'm going to real quick pop on. I just rolled to have my hoodie. But we do use these cameras all the time with our class, and I have found even when they're not on that I am talking to the camera. So thank you again for all being here, and I will turn it off and just talk. This is my 4th year at GCA, my 1st year in 1st grade, and I have absolutely loved it. I do get to teach all the subjects, but math is my most favorite. I have always been very passionate about that. And specifically teaching those Class Connect sessions, I have a ton of fun. So this is me, and go ahead, Paige.
Hi, and I'm Paige. I'm here as well today, so on my webcam. And this is my 4th year here at GCA, and I have been teaching for 12 years. So we, like Julia said, we teach all subjects, so ELA and math and science and social studies, everything like that. But all of our, I think this is geared towards math today, but all of our sessions should be engaging. So hopefully using some of these techniques that we're going to go over today will help you with all of your sessions, no matter what it is that you are teaching that day. So. All right, so a little bit about the background and what we're doing here today. We want it to be fun, like I said before. We want all of our sessions to be engaging, especially our math sessions. So we're going to talk about a few things today. We're going to talk about using our webcam, which we do a lot, especially with math. Talking about using animated graphics, movement to encourage our students and being active in the way that they learn. They love, love, love that. And when my kids know that's coming, they are so excited to get to class. So that's super fun. We're also going to share a couple of things that we do as far as kudos based on their tickets out the door, how we use the data that we collect to create small groups, and how we can reach those students that sometimes feel like we can't reach. So obviously our goal overall, and probably for you guys too, is to create those engaging sessions that students really want to attend. We want our students to want to be there and want to learn. All right, Julia?
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with a little polling. We would like to just know, how do you feel about your math sessions right now? Do you feel that they are already highly interactive? You're using the chat, the mic, the whiteboard tools often, even using those things with movement, just getting them involved. Are you somewhat interactive, where you're using those things a little bit, maybe once or twice? Very minimal, or to be honest, you're not really able to do that. You are just teaching each day, A, B, C, or D. Wow, this is great. Most of you guys are saying A or B. That is wonderful. Well, I hope you can take away some new ideas. I love to hear that. Absolutely. That is wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is using that camera. And like Julia said, she uses it and talks to it all the time. So these are just some things that we pulled out of our class sessions from math. Some things that we had used the camera for, and these were all manipulative. So, you know, I use my whiteboard camera. I swear I have, my desk is covered in different things, and I was just going to show you a few. I was trying to clean it up this morning before I was going to actually do this presentation, but I was like, you know what, I should show these people what we have here. And this is something that we did this week. Let me turn my camera around. This was actually a game with a spinner, so I had prepared the spinners before class. We were adding multiples of 10 to numbers. So I had those ready to show the kids that we were, what we were doing. I have some alligators where we were working on comparing numbers. We had greater than and less than. So obviously, you know, it's something you can just throw together real quick and put on the webcam and show those students, you know, that they can interact and make choices with you. Something that we use a lot, I'm digging in my bag, are base 10 blocks. And the students will, you know, even though they can't actually move them when I'm on the webcam, I can model it for them and then I can have them do it on the whiteboard. So this document camera is it's used so much, it's not even funny. But you can see a few different things here on the board that we have pulled from our class sessions. This was when we were working on making tins. So I have a little parking lot and some cars, they're tiny little cars, and we were talking about filling up those tin frames. Another tin frame that I had, I have a folder in my top drawer just of things that I have printed that I can pull out real quick and put on the webcam. So it could be like a 100 chart or a 10 frame or a number line, things like that. Here's the number line, and I had a little place marker we were counting on there. And then this is, again, adding those snap cubes. So all of these manipulatives that they have that come in their K-12 kits, I'm wondering, do they get them out as often as we do? And if we do it for them and model how often we can use them and show them what we can do with them, then hopefully they are going to use those as well. And this was a fun little game that that Julia made when I think we were decomposing numbers. Julia, you want to pick up with that one and explain what you had there?
This was for decomposing numbers, and I had made a little monster. That was so much fun. And on camera, we did it. I moved everything on the floor, put in blocks, and we didn't know which side the blocks would fall on, and we talked about how the number didn't change, yet the blocks went on different sides. Very cute activity, and they all really liked that one as well. All right, so I'm going to move on to animated graphics. This is something I really get into. One of my favorite times to use it is when a student answers a problem correctly or something like that. I will pop one of these little guys on the camera. I have put in the resource folder how to add animated graphics to your Blackboard tool thing, to your toolbox. So every time you log in, you can go to where you add pictures, that little bottom place clip art on the page, and it will have any of your animated graphics that you have added to it. I made a how-to. I would like to make a G, and I haven't done that yet. So at the end, get my email, and if it's something you'd like to know more about, I will reach out and I can get back to you. But we use these, again, all the time, just a fun way. I've even had them hidden on pages, a little animal that they can click, that they look for and they get really excited about. Co-teaching, this was really great because another co-teacher is talking, and as she's going, I'm able to encourage them on the side with these little fun guys. So you can do this easily just in the middle of the session. If you use this website right here, this is one of Paige's favorites, or simply Google animated cat dancing GIF, and then right-click, save it, and paste it. That is always fun. Obviously, you cannot do this in your PowerPoint. It has to be in the live session. I'm so glad you guys are using those. They, kids absolutely, as we all know, the kids love that. It's just another way to kind of get them excited, especially these young ones. Although I would say all of them, really. Another big thing that we love to do is making them move, and I was tempted to get all you guys to do it with me, but I feel like my session is not, if the students are not fully engaged, I will absolutely stop everything. Sometimes it's simply as, hey, everybody's going to get up and do 10 jumping jacks. But sometimes I do make it mathematical where, okay, if I say a number that equals 10, you're going to stand up. If I say a number that is less than 10, you're going to sit down. And I'll just call out problems, and they will follow the directions, just a way to kind of wake them up. That has always gone really well, even in odd numbers, any of these. Stand if there's a 5 in the tens place, sit if there's not. Anything you can think of. Sometimes they're planned, but again, sometimes it's so spontaneous because I can feel, okay, they're not with me. Let's do this. GoNoodle, you may have heard before. It's just a cool, that's really got a lot of fun videos and movement activities. Maximus for yoga is a hilarious one. Good brain breaks for students. I will be honest, have not used that as much this year as I have simply getting up and being active, but I wanted to share that as well. And thank you, that's a great tip. Get on the camera and do this with them. And I always do, and that is a good way to get them to giggle and to participate. This is one of my favorite activities, lessons that I did with place value. So what I did is the students, they saw this, and I'd say, okay, in the chat, tell me what the total is. Or in the chat, now we're going to do expanded form. After I got lots of good answers, moved on to the next one. And then they never knew when it was going to come, but there would be the activity slide, action. So when they saw this, everybody had to jump up, myself included, and we would march in place for 30 seconds. And I would put that on the timer. Oh my goodness, the kids love it. They love not knowing, and everybody was engaged. Everybody's writing down these answers as quick as they can, trying to get us to get moving. And then, boy, but they get excited when they got to do an activity. This has gone so well that I have taken some of these slides and moved them into other lessons, so they not just this place value one, the way it was originated, but also into other PowerPoints. And then they all laugh and we giggle. Oh my gosh, how did that
feel is really
important that one has
for
been
the
so much
engagement
fun.
is
Yeah,
getting
they all
to know your students. And you know, we talk a lot about building those relationships, and I think that, you know, the phone calls and the notes and all the little things that we do for our students are really important, but they love being called out in class. So they like getting the spotlight on them. They know if they send me something really great, I'm going to share it with everybody. And if I don't share it, you better believe they're asking why I have not. But something that I do with all of my classes, you know, Friday before the next week's classes, I sit down with all of my information and I start plugging in different students to just spotlight them for a quick minute. And it could be, you know, something, a piece of work or some math problems that they solved, or it could be a book that they read, or you never know what you're going to get. I get emails all week long, and so I sit down Friday and I go through them. So here is an example of one of my students. This is Mackenzie, and one of our social studies assignments was talking about consumers and producers, that kind of thing, learning all of that. So they did a scavenger hunt, and she actually took hers and sent me all these pictures. It was really awesome. So she found everything on the scavenger hunt and took her pictures along the way with, you know, goods, services, producers, consumers. So we were able to talk about that and revisit that whole concept at the beginning of one of our classes, and she loves the spotlight too. So something else that I like to do in math classes is we work on word problems a lot, and it's always, you know, some of the names that we see in word problems aren't very exciting, but when I can add my students' names in there and they think the story is about them, then it changes their whole idea, and they're no longer scared of that word problem. Sometimes they're a little scary with all those words, but they see their name and it's almost like a comfort for them, and they're like, hey, I can do this, I got this. And I'll even, a lot of times, I'll pick students who are definitely coming to class, and I'll always pick different students. It's never the same ones. But I'll ask them. So like here, Bridget, I want you to help me with this problem because it's about when you got those candy canes. So I'll call on a student who's actually in the word problem to help me solve it. So this is one word problem, but I have 3 different student names in there. I'm Bridget, Lainey, and Alana. So I threw in 3 names, and it took me like 2 seconds. So just a way to show off for those kiddos. This is something that we do when we're really trying to get assignments completed. And we just recently completed an interim assessment. And we send them out on Monday, and they're due by Friday. But to kind of, you know, jumpstart the competition a little bit, we'll throw in a slide every now and then and be like, hey, look at these friends. They've already started their interim assessment. So shout out to, and we'll just name off these friends whose names are on the board. They love that. And then this one right here was having the students enter the ticket out the door. You know, you get some students every once in a while. They don't really do what you've asked them to do, but this one was actually a competition between boys and girls. So from the previous day, when they completed the ticket out the door, these are all the girl names that had completed the ticket out the door, and these were the boy names. So you better believe that the boys did not like losing this competition. And the next day, there were a lot more boys who had completed that ticket out the door, showing us what they had learned in class that day. So just a great thing to encourage your students so that they feel comfortable, they feel special, and keep them engaged.
Encouraging participation, huge, huge, huge. Letting them write on the board, giving them the wait time. And I know that that's kind of away from engaging math sessions, but so important that we are giving them the time to think and the time to respond. It takes a little more time, but oh my gosh, they love being able to write on the door. They love being able to share their answers. So not being afraid of giving those tools, not being afraid of letting them be a part of it. I will even snip some of their responses really quick and paste them. Sometimes there's a few second delay, but they typically can see it. But I have started doing that a lot from in the chat. When I see something super fantastic, I will paste it on here and let them also be recognized for that. But just encourage them to participate and take the time to let them when they want to. Down here, this is a new thing. This is not my original idea, but I have taken it and I have run with it, and I just love it to reward their participation. And I'm going to grab the camera and show you. So what I've got is I've got my bowl here, and I have written all my students' names in it. We are not afraid to cold call. That is never a bad thing. They don't always respond, but it's not a bad thing. I also have an empty one with lots of blank pieces of paper. And so as the session is going on, I am noticing students that are getting called on, whether I do it through the cold calling or they volunteer. I hope, can you all still hear me? I just got a weird message. Thumbs up? Okay, thanks. When they participate, whether also if it's in the chat, I will write their name and put it into a drawing. At the end of class, I pick one, and then that student gets to pick something from the board. I cannot believe the difference in the participation of the class. I felt like I already had a lot of good participators. This has upped the ante. They love it. It can be a little intense. We typically have 40 to 50 students in there, but I make it work. I toss the names in there. After class, I pick one, and the student gets to pick. This is an example of Noah. He picked leading a number talk, and so he got to do that. His mother, oh my gosh, they were screaming when they won, so happy, and then he got to lead, and you can see kind of the chat responses. This has been wonderful, and I love the different choices. Somebody asked for me to just mail a letter. I've done a room, just a session with a student for 10 minutes, which just he and I am on hold right now. Next week I got to do the Silly Willy, and I cannot figure out what I'm going to do, but boy is that child excited. This has been so much fun, and so I would strongly encourage you to do this if you can and have a lot of fun. And that concludes our session. So at this point, I am going to, here's our contact information, leave it here for you to get our email. And if, Ms. Casey, if there's anything else that we need to do, but thank you for coming. I hope that you got something, and if you have any questions, please let us know.
Thank you so much. Amazing information and strategies. If you all would just stick around maybe for a few more minutes and answer any questions, and we'll make sure that you all get the attendance link and the materials link for Dropbox. You'll find the PowerPoint and all of their materials there.
welcome everybody to our next session in the content-specific room. I would like to introduce our speakers, Shania Stuick and Andrea Codera. I hope I pronounced your guys' names all right. And they are coming to us from Wisconsin Virtual Academy, and their presentation today is entitled Breaking Through the Fourth Wall, How to Build an Engaging, Positive School Culture Through Literacy. So thank you so much for coming and preparing this for us today, and go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much for that. Can everybody hear me okay? Please give me a smiley face if you can. Wonderful, thank you so much. So, okay, Andrea and I present kind of like how we write. We put a lot in, and we have a lot packed in, just like our title, a lot packed in today. So we're going to cook through it the best that we can, and we just want to thank you so much for being here and wanting to be involved in this. So, breaking through the fourth wall. We're going to talk about our literacy workshops and why we did this. So some of the background that we wanted to share with you is on the literacy workshops is that we found out through conversations, through data, through both formal and informal measures that we saw a lot of students coming to us in K2 who had some foundational literacy skills missing, some pretty big gaps, whether it be within their own learning or maybe it's because of prior exposure that they didn't have those kind of experiences. So that initiated our conversations that led deeper. Also some concerns and confusion from learning coaches. Really a lot of excitement about them learning from and teaching and supporting their students in our environment, but being really, really concerned and scared about how they can do that. You know, how do I help support literacy for our children? Virtual school disconnect. So we wanted to move our students away from just being that spectator. So think about yourself going to see a play or going to see like even a improv troupe, watching it versus really being involved in it. We wanted students to do more than just come to Class Connects and watch the learning that we're trying to present, but actually participate and take ownership of it. And then ultimately we knew that we needed to start also looking at behavior in our students in our virtual environment and how can we capture their engagement and their enthusiasm, but also bring out the good positive skills that we need to see them grow and have. And the background too is that for Wisconsin, all the teachers have to participate in what's called a PDP, which is a professional development plan, and it's over the course of 1 to 3 years. And we thought this would be a really good thing that we could do in that regard too, capture this data and move towards high quality teaching. In addition, Andrea and I were both part of a master's degree program that focused on literacy and also designing quality programming. And the research that kind of set this apart for us as well is that we looked into John Hattie, who is known for his research in positive student outcomes, and found things like reciprocal teaching, students being able to teach, peer feedback, and also the feedback that they get from their teachers, and also building on that teacher-student relationship showed really positive growth for students overall.
Thank you, Mrs. Stick. So strange. I guess I can call you Shauna in here. We are very used to teaching together, and so it's a little bit strange to not have a bunch of children in here. But I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Andrea Codera, and you can just call me Mrs. C because clearly I'm trying to teach kids to read, and that is not a very phonetic-friendly last name. And so that is what I have students do. So as we continue kind of our journey saying, gosh, we're really having a hard time with students getting through that K through 2 level and then going to 3rd grade with the knowledge that they need. And so that's why we started taking a look at all of this and what we had discovered. Really, this will be my 5th year here, and I believe it is Shauna's 4th year here. So we've got a little bit of just kind of, going through the whole thing a few times and really seeing what was missing and what we really, really found for literacy support was kind of, you start at the beginning and section it out. Phonological awareness, we really needed to start there with a lot of students. And moving up to, you know, just that phonemic, that whole phonics portion, then even decoding and using reading strategies. Then we got to the writing. You know, that's scary at any grade level, I think. But one of the other real issues that we have is fluency. And when we kind of took a look at all of these, definitely our curriculum is a great curriculum, but what we found was that parents were coming to us because if they didn't work for their student, if that one way did not work, they didn't know what to do. They had no tools. They didn't know reading strategies. They didn't know what that meant. They didn't know any other ways to teach these ideas. And so they just kind of felt lost. And so kind of along with that, then sometimes we would really get learning coaches that weren't nearly as engaged as we would want. And a lot of that was kind of coming from a place of, yeah, but my student can't really read and I'm not really sure what to do about it. I'm really embarrassed and I don't really want to tell the teacher. It's kind of the short and long of it. So we wanted to find a way to not only hit this information, but also bring the learning coaches in, have everybody learn how to use these Class Connect tools to make things easier. One of the things that we have to do in our school is actually give a reading assessment 3 times a year to students. They have to be able to use those. And so, you know, helping that, getting that practice in and really having the learning coach also feel comfortable with that, really giving them an opportunity to collaborate with peers and teachers and letting the learning coaches also know that it's not just them. Because this is a really scary thing. I mean, when you think about it, I did not come with the knowledge that this is how you teach the sound for the letter A. That's not something that is innate in many people. So we needed to help them understand that. So we wanted to do that. And we also, in the process, really wanted to increase our school culture of kind of, you know, letting people know that this is a community. You're not on your own. The kids aren't on their own. The learning coaches aren't on their own.
So what we decided to do is take on a workshop format, but not just a workshop to support students, but also a workshop to support the learning coach. So that's how we set it up, designed it, and advertised it. And we did it into these 3 chunks. So the first part was word work, which really was that foundational skill, phonological awareness, moving into phonemic awareness, and then, you know, onsets and rhymes and things like that. But again, not just giving examples for students to be able to do, but also helping learning coaches to identify the what's and whys and how to help support their students.
And then we moved on to the second chunk, my favorite chunk. I love the Beanie Baby reading strategy things. I just think they're cute. And this is something that's not really taught to a large degree in our curriculum, so this really was something that was added and kind of, like I say, gave those learning coaches another set of strategies. You know, if my student can't figure out the word, what do I do? What do I do? And a lot of times they were just as deadlocked as their students with it.
And then for second grade only, for learning coaches and our second grade students, we focused on the workshop, which was on Writer's Workshop. So it was taking them all the way through the writing process, from pre-writing and drafting, all the way through editing, evaluating in a group, individually, getting that feedback from peers and also teachers, and then into publishing and having a publishing party. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. What we found as far as data from students and from learning coaches was nothing short of amazing. So we had very solid attendance. Anywhere from 28 was really our low, all the way up to 76 plus, and that's the students plus learning coaches. Exit tickets, we had 90% plus giving correct concept responses and also indicating that they had a good time in this. So that shows right in here as well. And then a lot of the feedback that we got, we had a good time. I was happy to hear my different teachers. Thank you. There's one right down here. I thought this was kind of fun for the writer's workshop that we did. The story was on Grumpy Cat, and so students had to write a story about what makes Grumpy Cat grumpy, when do they get grumpy, what could Grumpy Cat do to make himself feel better, and then what could they do to make themselves feel better. And one of the kids responded, I don't like cats as a topic. I don't like cats at all. They are gross, especially when they eat out of dumpsters, which was one of the students' writing example, which was really kind of funny that they connected that. So a lot of really good positive feedback as far as learning coach attendance, and this is what we were a little bit worried about. We still had 3/4 of our learning coaches who attended all the time, and then of the 1/4 that only did or didn't attend all the time, half of those came sometimes, and then half of those didn't come at all. So, and then with all of our workshops, we made sure to have at-home free or very, very inexpensive resources that we could send home to help them be able to practice these concepts and skills within the home environment as well. And we got a lot of good positive feedback from learning coaches and students as wanting and needing those additional resources.
And to just kind of give you an idea, like, okay, well, that's great. You had 28 to 76 students. What does that mean? It was absolutely amazing for us. We went from an average, I would say, at a maximum, probably 15, an average of about 9 kids per class the year before that. This year we are back down a little bit, but that I think is kind of a demographic thing more than anything else. So we are back down a little bit, but this really was huge last year. So talking a little bit more about those home resources, it might seem to, well, you and I, for sure, we'll just Google it. But it's not always that simple, especially when you're not quite sure what you're trying to Google. I remember when that was not a verb. It just kind of blows my mind. But a lot of parents, these are the types of things that they would get in brick and mortar. You know, every week or every month or whatever, they get a newsletter, and then they get something from the reading teacher, from the math teacher, whatever, that says, here's some extension activities that you can do at home that will go along with what we're doing in school. And it really, you know, especially considering our students are virtual, you would assume a lot of times that their learning coaches are more adept at, you know, using the internet, but that's not always the case. And so I even ended up, you know, where a lot of parents were sort of like, okay, but I don't even know what to type in. So for word work, where that was those phonics, we supplied, you know, a bunch of different things. These are my favorite. I love these. I love the word family bracelets. But also, you know, things like this dough that was a very thick tactile dough where they were able to literally make a shape so that they didn't bake out. Then they could eat the cookies. We actually had students who sent us pictures of these things that they did. So these are just a few examples from that word work. Every time we did reading strategies, I sent out a strategy pack that had basically what, you know, as a teacher you would think being kind of your center activities. You know, your reading center activities was those types of things that I sent out. Everybody got bookmarks, and they got the little things that they could put on the popsicle sticks to use these. Last year, and I will just head in here, thank you, Tiffany. Last year we did these once a month, and we did them back to back. Like, we always had them, I don't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, but it was like, you know, the same one of the month, so the first Wednesday of every month. And these ran at least for an hour each. And that was with the two of us, we facilitated everything together. This year we have changed things up a little bit, and we'll get into that in just a second. I think, so I don't forget, I would tell you the once a month thing worked out fabulous. It worked out great, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of go back to doing it that way. So just a couple examples here then also for that writer's workshop. Writer's workshop is one of those really, really hard things, because either as a person you're a really good writer or you're not. I just mean as a parent. And if you are a good writer, a lot of times you can't teach writing. You can't explain that process because it is innate in you. A lot of times it's just innate. And so to give the learning coaches those extra activities to go with each step in the writing process really, really helped out too.
So some of the things that we started to see as far as student engagement, not just their work, but also how they were feeling and engaging and acting, just that stuff that you can't really capture with data. So that's, you know, just that added bonus that we started to see emerge from these workshops. And so for Writers Workshop, like I said, we had the Grumpy Cat activity where we took them all the way through the writing process. And something I wanted to share with all of you in here is this right here is a rough draft that one of my students did. So it's really hard to see it, but that's okay. It gives you that general idea. And we gave them a rubric and told them, you know, how we were going to be evaluating them. We have the students work together with other students to give feedback, and then we sent them a rubric with notes on it and gave them a score. And then asked them to, okay, now build upon that and come up with your final draft. And this was the final draft that the same student was presenting to me at the end and presented to all of the K through 2 students that attended our presentation party, our publishing party is what we called it. One of the things that's so cool about this is a child with an IEP who came to us, has had multiple surgeries, does not like to write because he has hand tremors, has a difficult time holding a pencil, fine motor skills are a challenge, and has had tons of surgeries. And his writing right here says, Grumpy Cat is grumpy. Grumpy Cat is grumpy because he's lonely. I get grumpy when people laugh at me. I feel better when I play with my friends. Grumpy Cat could feel better if he found a friend to play with. How amazing is this? Not just the change from our draft to our final, but that he was able to process that. And you know what? Another thing that was beautiful is he presented this, got tons of positive feedback from parents and students. Not one person besides me and the other teachers knows he has an IEP, knows of his challenges, nothing. He was just a normal kid, an average kid just like everybody else who got his moment to shine. How cool is that?
Very cool, Mrs. Stick. Can't even call you Shauna. It just seems weird. Our publishing party was absolutely amazing. And what we did, we invited in administration and, you know, like the 3-5 teachers, because these were all second grade teachers that were then going to go to the 3-5 grade band. You know, learning coaches were, I mean, it was a huge turnout, and every student had the opportunity to present their work. And this area right here is kind of what that slide would have looked like. So it was their final product, and they were able to say whatever they wanted to say about it, and then they could read their story. I think we only had 1 or 2 students who asked for a teacher to read their story. Otherwise, we had all of those students reading their own stories. They were so proud. And I mean, this is really a huge process. They went into breakout rooms and, you know, during, you know, working on revisions with their peers. So really, really to be able to finally share that was really incredible. And this just kind of gives you an idea of one of the things. This is what I did when I got a rough draft. I put little stars on there that correlated with the rubric. And then my favorite was that for spelling, I mean, you know, hey, if they spelled it, they gave it a try, I'd always go, hint, you know, this is how you spell chocolate. Yeah, something like that. And so we ended up having that publishing party. It was absolutely, well, it was the best day I have ever had as a teacher. It was just incredible. Yes, we gave them drafts, and then we gave them the final so that they could actually see how their score increased and why. So it really was a fabulous introduction for them because it's not something that's huge within our curriculum for them to do at that grade level. So that really, really helped them as they were going to the next grade. So honestly, you ever really want to feel great about yourself as a teacher? This is a fabulous thing to do. And at the end of the year, you'll be like, oh, that's why. That's why.
The class is an hour is how long that we have with that. So this year, like I said, and like Andrea said, we're doing things a little bit differently. So we still have the Writers Workshop, which is going to be Grumpy Cat this year. The students, that depends. It totally depends. But we also did things like we did a first day of school story that was custom made for our students. So being able to make it just so that on the first day of school, the students at K2 got a story just like they would if they were in a brick and mortar that really is designed around their virtual experience. And there was even pictures of us and our families in our principal that we put into the story. So customizing it to build on that connection. Also doing our Readers Theater, which is another thing that we're starting actually this year that we have just for first grade so we can build on fluency. We have movable pieces in here. We put on a play to show them what it would look like. And we had all of these pieces. The cat steals the snack. And we have that moving around on the screen for them. So it really showed them what we could do, that we could still have a Reader's Theater that is live action in our environment.
Yeah, and just to kind of go through what was in the chat as well. Oh, absolutely huge. I mean, we had a huge amount of students. We didn't really know how many would follow through. We did keep to the rule. You had to meet your deadlines. You had to do that. So that otherwise, you know, we'd be there forever. And so to be able to present, you had to follow through with everything, and you had to meet the deadlines and be there on time. Because then we also, like I showed here, we had to go through, we had to do all of this, we had to put all the presentations together and everything. We had about 40 to 50 that followed through to the end, and it was Shauna and I doing the drafts and then the finals. But you have to remember too, it was over like a 2-month period, where we would have it, and because otherwise the kids were kind of crazy anyway. They got kind of bored with it anyway. So I mean, it really was kind of a more of a drawn out process. I can tell you that second for second, this was better spent time than anything else I have ever done as a teacher. And that's just the simplest way to put it. This was the pinnacle right there. Absolutely loved it. Yeah. Not sure what happened there. And so another thing this year that we are doing, go back to that, we are doing that Grumpy Cat, but we have one extra teacher. In the past, we have always had more than 3 teachers. This year, we actually are down to 3 teachers. And so with that, we are lucky to have our third teacher, Angie Zach, who is also helping us out with these this year. So that does take some of that burden off as well. We really did it more as a pilot in an attempt to, hopefully make this something that's able to go on. And as Shauna said, it was both part of our master's and part of our PDP, which is basically like writing a thesis. We are doing that again this year. However, due to some testing changes and things like that, we had to move that to second semester, and then I have a delay, so this is what I'm hearing, so I do apologize. But we've had to move it to second semester and then really kind of shorten the length up on this. So not quite sure how it's going to all kind of fall out yet. Hopefully we'll be able to get back to that. The other thing that we have added this year that I just want to touch on quick is our community learning circles, which have worked out fabulous.
Okay, sorry about that. I had a huge delay on my end. So one more thing that we decided to do this year, instead of just doing a K2 read aloud, we kind of wanted to incorporate some of that community building with middle school. So in brick and mortar, you typically have the students that are at the older end of your school come down and read kindergarten or first grade and have those reading buddies. So we decided to do that in our virtual school as well. So we had middle school reading buddies. So a few students that were selected by their middle school teachers as being very engaged, very responsible, appropriate students who would come down and read certain stories to our kindergarten through second grade students. And we found that this was a positive thing, not just for our K2 students who were like, yay, the big kids want to read to us, but it was also something really good for the middle school students as well. So you would see all this positive feedback during our read aloud from, these are all middle school students. So one student in K2 said, I'm sick, and there was feedback right away. I'm so sorry to hear that, feel better. But then you got a lot of radical job, you all are so smart, really positive things being said from middle school. And then also middle school students saying, when they were getting appreciation for coming down and supporting our K2 students, one of them responded, it's only the right thing to do, so you build on that school culture of showing that, that really just supporting each other and we're all together. This is one school and we're here for each other.
We have always scanned them in and then done screenshots into a PowerPoint or a whiteboard file, whatever we need to do. That's just kind of the way we've always done it. And it works out pretty slick. So as you can tell, both of us love to talk and could talk about this subject forever. But I hope that we gave you a few ideas. I know that things are incredibly time consuming and none of us have huge amounts of time. But these are some really great ideas that we've really found have really improved our community feel and the feelings for our learning coaches that they're doing it. They're doing it, their kids are succeeding, and that it's working out great. So anytime, please feel free. If you have any questions about this at all, please just send us an email. We have no issues with that. And I really want to say thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our presentation today. So Shauna, I will let you say goodbye.
Thank you so much, everybody, and do reach out to us if there's any questions that you have, or if there's any resources that you saw today that you would like to have from us. We're happy to share.
Absolutely. Please feel free to let us know. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you all here today. I'd like to welcome you to this session of our Promising Practices Conference. And this session is titled All Aboard, Increasing Writing Proficiency, Grades 6 through 12. I'd like to introduce you to our speakers today, Shay Anderson and Tori Cox. Both are from the Utah Virtual Academy. And just want to give you both a shout out and welcome you, and I'll turn the time over to them. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you so much for having us. We're very excited to be here today, and we see a lot of our UTVA colleagues and administration here, and we're really excited to share what we've been doing in the writing world with all of you here. So let's go ahead and get started. So this session is talking about how we have tried to increase our writing proficiency grades 6 through 12. And it's been a team effort. Our teachers have been more than amazing in taking this on. And so we're talking from science to PE to math and English, all across the curriculum. So let's dive in and talk about how this has been. First, just a quick little bit about me. I've been an English or ESL teacher for 7 years and 5 years here at UTVA. I love running, reading, and anything outside, which is Utah's a wonderful place to be if those are your hobbies. I'm a mother to 3 beautiful girls, and we're expecting our first son in June. And I am a self-proclaimed poet on the fly.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Tori. My name is Shay Anderson. Let me get my camera on, see if you can see me here. I have been teaching at Utah Virtual Academy for over 6 years now. I'm wife to a 6'6" giant man, I call him, because I'm only 5 feet tall. So you can imagine the height difference going on there. I'm the mother of 2 beautiful girls. I love to read and run and cook, and I like to laugh and have fun in my class. So that's a little bit about me. This is actually a picture from one of our proms that we had here at UTVA. We have a really good time at prom at our school. Okay, to begin, I'm going to give you a little background information first about what we've been working on this year at Utah Virtual Academy to increase our writing proficiency. So we've had a goal this year in the whole school to increase writing proficiency, but in this session we're going to be talking specifically about what we've done in grades 6 through 12 and even more specific to the high school realm, but the middle school has been doing pretty much the same thing also. So UTVA, the reason that we decided to implement this year, we are held to really high standards at our end of year state testing, and writing is an area that really needed improvement. It's an area that we've kind of struggled with, and we knew that we needed to come together as a school to start working on this together. We've been working with a team called Innovations Educational Consulting Team. They've been helping us in our school turnaround, and they actually presented us with this idea. It's a school-wide approach to increase the amount and quality of writing at our school. So before I give you a little bit more info on that, let me ask you a question. And I'll give everyone has your whiteboard tools here. Just hover over whichever answer you think is correct. Is every teacher a writing teacher? A, yes, absolutely, or no, it depends on the subject. What do you think? Go ahead and show me with your whiteboard tools there. And you can be honest. You know, do you think every teacher is a writing teacher somewhat? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of good answers here. So it looks like most of you are thinking yes. A few of you, well, maybe it depends on the subject. Okay, thank you for participating with that. So I happen to be one that believes that all teachers are writing teachers. So those of you that said yes, why is every teacher a writing teacher? Go ahead and share on the whiteboard or in the chat. Why is every teacher a writing teacher? Why is that an important skill that we should all be making sure that our students have? Okay, students write in all subjects like that. To be able to succeed in any career, you must be able to be a good writer. Aha, I love that. Even in PE, your students have to write. My husband's an engineer, a mechanical engineer. He writes reports every day. But he took 1 million math classes in college, but he's so grateful for his writing classes and that he always had to write because he uses it in his career all the time, right? So I always use that example to my students, like, that love, you know, I'm like, he has to write. Like, if he couldn't, he couldn't do his job if he didn't know how to write, even though he's an engineer. So I love it. These are great. They do. They have to write all the time. Subject specific, okay. Writing required, I love all these. All of this is so great. I want to read them all. Everything takes thought. Writing allows us to show our thinking. I love that. Critical thinking skills. Writing happens everywhere. Writing equals thinking, teaching. Thinking is key to all subjects. Love it. I love all of these ideas. Tori and I were looking for a great quote to put about why every teacher is a writing teacher, and you guys have already provided them for us, so we didn't even need to find one, did we, Tori? Thanks, everybody, for sharing with that. Love it. It takes a village. I love that, Mallory. Thank you. Okay, we are going to move onward now. Okay. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the plan. This is what you want to learn. This is what you want to know about, right? So Innovations Ed, they came to us, the English department, and they presented us with this idea. This was research that they had taken from a turnaround school that they had helped that had amazing results with increasing their writing proficiency. This was a brick and mortar school. So we knew that we would have to change this to work for our school, but this is what they presented with us. This is from the Innovations Ed. The brick and mortar school, their approach was in every class period, every day, the teachers would be using the same bell work. So for October through November, for example, the teacher would give the students a topic and the students had to write a claim and response. The students were doing this every day in every class. So by the end of November, they all were able to write a claim in response to a prompt. And then the other months they did counterclaims, and they did counterclaims with support. And the English department, yeah, it was a great idea. The English department was the team that did the professional development and helped put everything together for this turnaround school. So this is what they presented to us. And we're going to give you some details in just a second. We'll give you some details. So this is what they presented us, and we're like, okay, we're thinking this sounds pretty good. And then when they showed us the results from this turnaround school, we were like, sold! We've got to try this at Utah Virtual Academy. So let me show you the results that this turnaround school had. It's amazing. This is the outcomes that they shared with us. They increased in student confidence in writing, in their skills, in their end-of-year assessment, which is called the SAGE Writing Test. That's our end-of-year assessment. And the sophomore class, just as an example, went from 3% to 18% in 1 year. And this over here is some more examples of their scores. Thank you, Tori, for showing that. Their scores with their increases. So we were blown away. We were like, okay, we're on board now. Because we were a little nervous at first, like how are we going to get all of the teachers to be on board with this? But after we saw the great results, we knew we had to at least try. So this is when the plan comes into place, and I'm going to turn it over to Tori now to explain.
Thank you. So like Shay said, this was a brick and mortar school that they came to us with, and these amazing results. We're game, we're doing this, we love this. And then we thought, okay, but you know, like all of us virtual teachers do every day, we're going virtual. Okay, so we put on our virtual glasses, and we were challenged to make that work here at UTVA. This is our first year doing it. And so some of you might be thinking, okay, you asked your teachers to do what? So think about your school. Think about the school where you are. When asked to devote 1 bell work session per week, so we changed it a little bit. Instead of every day, every subject, we decided 1 bell work session per week. So English would have Mondays, Tuesdays would be science, Wednesdays was math, okay, that sort of thing. So when asked to devote 1 bell work session per week to writing instruction, content teachers reacted like this. Hover over where you think your content teachers in your school would react. This is going to be awesome. I can totally see how I could implement this in my blank class. Wait, all that amazing bell work I spent all summer creating has to be interrupted by writing? Or, hey, why am I doing the job of these lazy English teachers over there? Or, I knew this moment would come, the moment when I've lost complete control of every aspect of my life. Or, you know, just acceptance, just breathe. We've tried crazier things. So let's see, kind of all across the board, our teachers, you know, from all across these schools would be quite a few in the middle, but also a lot up here in the, you know, accepting it, let's do this. I'm willing to help our students. So let me just take off your tools for a moment. And I would say that the majority from our school ended up being in this category right here. This is going to be awesome. I can see how I can implement this in my blank class, or I'm willing to try to figure out how to implement this in my science class, PE class, Spanish class. So we were thrilled with the teacher buy-in. Our teachers really care about our students succeeding. And as I can see all across the board, right? So to do this, we knew it was all hands on deck, okay? And Shavian talked to us a little bit more about the plan and how we implemented it.
Okay, thanks, Tori. I love those graphics. Tori created that last slide. Okay, so all hands on deck. We're gonna show you now today what the plan is, what we figured out how to make this work at Utah Virtual Academy. So we knew that the reason that this was successful in this turnaround school was it was a common bell work. All teachers were doing the same thing. They would use different prompts depending on their subject level, but we knew that you know, our focus was going to be the same on making sure that students learn how to write claims, counterclaims, and adding in those supporting details. So our goal, obviously, we had a goal in mind to increase writing proficiency by the end of the school year, and we had a very specific goal in mind. We have and I'll show you that in a minute also. The outcomes. So these are some things we've already seen. We've already seen major improvements in our students' abilities to write effective claims, and even just that they understand that word now. And we have some examples at the end of our presentation of actual student examples of the gains that they've made with these claims and counterclaims. And the change, we've seen some great confidence in our students' writing has increased. I hear students all the time make comments like, I had a student the other day, I write so many claims all the time, I could do this in my sleep, because he does it in all of his classes. We do teach, we're in the high school level, but this is also going on in the middle school also at our school. So the challenge, we needed to put together a plan to make this work for our virtual school. So I'm actually going to show you the slides that we used when we presented this to our high school. We had to get everyone on board. So we knew that we wanted to have it all put together before we presented it to the rest of our high school, so they weren't like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? So a lot of work went into before we even presented it to the other teachers. So we had our goal that we showed everyone, the very specific goal with what we wanted to achieve this year, and then our plan of the common bell work. And then we knew it would be important. We didn't want this to be one extra thing that our teachers would have to stress about putting together. So we provided, and Tori's going to show you this in just a minute, we made all of the things that they would need. All of the prep work was done. We created the template for the bell work, and we're going to show you an example of that. We made mini lessons. We thought of topic ideas for each department depending on their subject. We had a glossary of writing terms that they could use. We made a schedule. So you can see our schedule down here. English teachers would do their bell work on Mondays. Science was on Tuesdays, math on Wednesdays. So students were getting a variety of different prompts, but on different days. So they kind of got used to, okay, English, I'm going to do this on Mondays. Math class, it's going to be on Wednesdays. So we had a very set schedule, and we've stuck to this. And then we had our timeline of when we would do these certain skills here. And we've tweaked this timeline a little bit as we've gone on, and we're going to show you that, how we've realized things that have worked and things that haven't worked, and how we've had to make adjustments. So, Tori, I'm going to turn it over to you now for the next putting the plan in place.
Okay, so as Shane said, we tried to create as many resources as possible. We even have a common template so that when students go into science or when they go into Spanish class, they see that exact same bell work slide, and they know, okay, here we are. This is my day for writing a claim in geometry. And so we created mini lessons where the teachers, if a student says, what do you mean write a claim? They've been MIA for a week or so. Then they can give them the link to this video of us showing of us giving a mini lesson on a claim, and then also on counterclaims. We gave departments different ideas for possible topics, but I feel like most teachers decided, I'm talking about greenhouse gases today, so I'm going to present a claim or a topic regarding this topic to go more naturally into my class. And we also, provided a list of a glossary of writing terms. And so this is what our bell work template looked like for the claim, and then it was very similar for the counterclaim. We, it looked the same again in every class, and then we just tried to provide some details about, reminders like what is a claim. And then on our counterclaim slide, we have some sentence starters. How can you begin a counterclaim? While others may believe that, or while it may be true that, those kinds of things to help students know how to get started on their claim or their counterclaim. And so after this went on for, when we first launched it, after 1 week, we kind of rallied with each department at a high school staff call, and we wanted to hear what went well and what was a challenge. And so it was neat to share and to learn about the things that are going well and the feedback they were getting from students. But of equal importance, and maybe even more importance, was when we learned about how it was what is a challenge? What are our students struggling with? What can we help clarify? And then we asked the teachers, let's make a list of common errors that you're seeing our students make. And then once we did that, once we determined those common errors, we provided extra support to all the content teachers. So we made, another slide to help, tips to make your claim great, right? So we looked at the problems. A lot of them were answering directly yes because or no because. And so we gave some feedback about how, don't do that, and don't begin with I or you should, I think you should, those kinds of things. And we reminded them that a claim is debatable and focused. And just some ideas on how we could help our teachers is what we wanted from those teachers, okay? So lots of support came from the English department, and we're trying to continue giving that support to our teachers. Now, so maybe you're wondering, how did the teachers keep track of all of these claims coming in? Well, we brainstormed with teachers different ideas in how they could track their responses. So we gave them our options, or the things that we've thought of, and then we also empowered them to choose what would work best for their classes. So one idea is to use the Google Doc form. There are pros and cons to each of these. One pro to using the Google Doc form is you say, okay, here's the link. Now please type your claim or your counterclaim directly into this link. And the teacher, I use Google Docs, I look on my other screen and I can see the claims coming in right then. And I can say, if you started your claim with I think or you should, try again. And I'd private message really quickly to that student, hey Jacob, I noticed you started with I think. Can you take away the I think? It'll be so much stronger, so they can get that immediate feedback right then. So, and then we also, said you can use your Class Connect quizzes, create a Class Connect quiz in the course. And then it immediately assigns a grade to the claim. And spot checking answers, that's really important to do. Or even a discussion. Thank you, Nicole. So some teachers use it as a discussion, and you're able to spot check those answers as the answers come through to look for common problems. So if you're thinking of working on this in your school, I think it'd be great to brainstorm different ways that you could track responses to make it meaningful and to compile all of the responses so you can see that student growth. And we also wanted to make sure that we were kind of looking for the same thing, right? So teachers had this option to use this grading rubric that we gave. And again, I just want to share this. The Doug Reese's 90-90-90 schools research indicates that one of the highest impact practices is teachers scoring student writing on common rubrics. Okay, so we shared this rubric, and teachers have the option to grade the feedback that they're getting, the claims and counterclaims according to this rubric. So the students can get that same feedback all across the board.
Okay, thanks, Tori, for going through all of that. Awesome job. Okay, now this is the fun part. This is the part I like. We have some examples that some of our awesome teachers at Utah Virtual Academy have shared with us of their students' progress. So we have several of them. I'm going to show you, I'll kind of just show you the first one, and then I think we'll give you a few minutes and you can flip through these and look at some of the different examples. But this is an example from a science teacher, so you can see the prompt that the teacher was able to pick whatever type of prompt they want. And this is an example of the student's claim at the beginning. So this is before really any, a whole lot of instruction, before they've gone through and done it a few times. And then a student's claim after practice. So a student that has had some practice, we've been able to give them the tips after we've gone through and seen the common errors. Like we said, a lot of the common errors where students would answer the prompt yes or no or say I think. So that's something we've worked on a lot. But it's really fun to see how all of the different teachers were empowered to pick a prompt that works for their class. So we're going to give you guys, I think just like, we'll go until minute 6. Feel free to look through these. I think we've got examples for science, history, English, math, electives. So go ahead and flip through those, and then we'll pull everyone back together, and we will we'll kind of wrap this up. But feel free also to put we'll live chat as you're looking at these, any questions you have or comments about what you're seeing, and that would be awesome. All right, thank you so much for taking a look at those. I just about called you students. I appreciate that. And so we saw some feedback about how impressive the improvement is, and I agree. It's super exciting to see our students even just understanding what a claim means and what it should look like. And our content teachers have been amazing this year, and we're so thrilled that they've been on board with this. And here's just some of their, I guess, here are their testimonials, we could say, on how they felt this has gone this year. So go ahead and take a look at those. So Tracy's asking if these were, based on a text, any of the prompts, and you know what, that was left to the teacher. If the teacher felt that they were reading, maybe a seminal text that day in history, they could certainly incorporate that into their counterclaim or claim bell work. And so it's left up to the teacher. We just ask that they make sure they do it on their day and follow the rubric and keep the instruction going. So it's really up to the teacher, and as we all know, teachers are flexible. And we learned that daily explicit writing instruction is necessary to help students understand the format of an essay. One success that we've felt so many so far, is that the teacher buy-in was really effective in our case, and students could see the importance of this instruction as they were exposed to it daily and from every front, right? And then one challenge is that we quickly learned that the way that the pilot school taught the counterclaim did not work in our virtual setting with our students for whatever reasons. And so we needed to modify our instruction quickly for the counterclaim specifically. So that's just one challenge that we've run into, probably the most significant. And so as teachers, we've always been flexible. And so we wanted to be flexible and change that instruction to make it meaningful to students. And finally, just wanted to emphasize the growth that this pilot school experienced, and we're excited to see, how our growth will look at the end of the school year. And so here are our references, and we've just had a really wonderful time teaching this all year and helping teachers feel empowered in incorporating writing into their classroom as well. Thank you so much for coming, and please stick around with any questions that you have. We do have the resources. I heard some of you asking for resources, so you could take it back to your administration, and we have the PowerPoint that we can share, and so that you can take this home and share. And also, here, I'll put it on this one. Here is the link to the Dropbox that you should be able to get all of the resources from all of your presentations. I'll just put it, I don't know what slide it's going to. I'll put it on this slide with the comments. But we have loaded our PowerPoint presentation in there, and then also we have two of the the counterclaim and the claim bellwork template for you to look at or use if you'd like. And also there's a document that has an overview, just kind of a write-up of the plan and how we put it in place at our school. So here's the live link right here. But yeah, feel free to add your comments right here. Tori and I will try and answer as many questions as we can. And thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Shay and Tori. Remember that when you guys log out, you will have the attendance link come up, and you only need to fill it out once today. So please make sure you give us your feedback, and just let's give Tori and Shay a round of applause. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, we can go ahead and begin. Again, thanks to everybody who answered the question here, and it looks like the majority are not involved with training, which is fine, but there's also quite a few of you who are. So I hope that what I have to share here today with you will be of some use. I'm also hoping to learn a lot from you. As far as I'm concerned, training itself and learning how to train is never done. There's always more to learn, and so one of the main reasons I really wanted to present here was to get feedback and ideas from others as well as sharing my own. So let me tell you a little bit about myself before we get started. My name is Joe Hargrave, and I work with Insight School of California and training and support teacher. My background actually is in social sciences. I have my degrees in sociology and political science. I just became a teacher about 2 years ago. So I'm still relatively new, although not so new to online teaching, because prior to coming to work for Insight, I had background working online as an adjunct faculty member for community college. And so as far as personal life goes, I'm kind of an introvert. I take it easy. Reading a book at home or just going out to dinner with my wife, my idea of a smashing good time. So yes, absolutely. That Japanese food is probably our favorite thing to go out and get. And so yeah, so that's a little bit about my background. I've been with Insight for about 2 years. I've been in the training role for a good chunk of that time, for about a little close to 1.5 years. And so I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things I've learned in that time, especially this school year, which has been really something amazing. So let me give you a little bit of background to this presentation, okay? So Insight School of California is 100% at-risk school. So we have a challenging population. And our teachers need to support a lot of struggling families, and so somebody needs to support them. Our enrollment just exploded from the time that I started, which is way back in February 2015, going into the 2015-2016 school year. Our enrollment just skyrocketed. We had hundreds of new students sign up, and so of course this meant that we had to hire and train more teachers. Now up to this point, we had our lead teachers doing most of the training, actually all of the training, but lead teachers have a lot to do. And I know they go by different names in different schools, but I think you all know what I mean when I say lead teacher or head lead teacher, or you know, a position along those lines. They have a lot of responsibilities, and there's not always a whole lot of time to dedicate to new hires, especially beyond the first week or two. So we thought it'd be efficient to have a staff member dedicated to this full time, and so that's how my position came about. This school year alone, I have trained 12 new teachers, and they come in groups of 2, 3, 4 at a time, and so we have to be ready to get them quickly up to speed and integrated into our school. So in addition to just the training, I also provide ongoing support throughout the school year. I support teachers both in their content role and in their homeroom roles. I'll probably talk more about homeroom today than content, although really it's what I have to say is applicable to both. And again, you'll probably hear me say this a couple of times, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I love to keep things simple. And what I have to share today are very simple strategies I've found them effective. Some people might want more complexity out of it, but honestly, I always believe that simple is best, and so I hope that comes through in what we're going to discuss. So I want to start by talking about, just kind of set the stage, things that I often hear from new hires. Old school did not have hands-on training. It was kind of left to sink or swim. Training materials were outdated, and this one I hear a lot. I had to learn a lot on my own. And so this led me to want to learn more specifically from our teachers. So I asked them, I took a poll and I asked them if there was one piece of advice they could give to a new teacher starting out in an online school for the first time, what would it be? And I got 2 responses consistently. And I just want to know what you think those might have been, or you can just share things that you've heard from new teachers. It doesn't have to be 2 things, just 1 thing if you want to put it on the whiteboard or in the chat box. Whether you're a teacher yourself or an admin, just take a minute in the chat box and what do you hear from new teachers? Or what would your advice be to new teachers? You can put either one. And then I will share with you what we often hear. Don't get sucked into the computer, yeah. It can easily become your life, yes. Okay, I saw take notes, be patient, takes at least a year to learn the job, brilliant. Be adaptable, get organized, and that's okay. So these are all great responses, and they do kind of align with what I've heard quite a bit and what I'm going to share with you now. So the 2 things I heard the most from our teachers is ask questions and get organized. Okay, if I had to just break it down and make it simple, ask questions and get organized. And really what I would hear is don't be afraid to ask questions. And why would anyone be afraid to ask questions? I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but I have found that it is kind of a pervasive fear, at least for some teachers. And I've actually found a majority. I mean, some are perfectly comfortable getting right in there and asking questions, or others, you kind of have to almost ask them questions to get them to ask questions, if you know what I mean. And organization is also key, and I'll be discussing, they don't know what they don't know, exactly. And so these 2 ideas kind of became the foundation of the training and support ideas I'm going to share with you today. So a quick A through D poll question. How long does training last at your school? Just want to get a sense. Less than a week, 1 to 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, or a month or more? Okay, this is looking good. Thank you so much for your replies. And I'm seeing that at a lot of schools it is 1 month or more, although there are some where it's only 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 weeks. Yes, ongoing throughout the year. Always mentoring. Okay, so that is so great to hear. Let me tell you about how it works at our school, and thank you so much for providing those answers. So at Insight, of course we expect teachers to complete the K-12 training and other trainings within a 30-day period, but there really is no end to training, and I'm seeing that that's the case at a lot of your schools as well. It's going on past that first month. Why is that? Because during that first year, there are so many firsts that are going to come up, and they kind of require their own new training session, their own new training modules. First time you set up a course, the first time you have to deal with attendance problems. At our school, we are on a quarter system, and so we have to transition through quarters several times per year. And so the first time that happens, when we're talking about work records, getting things graded on time, dealing with all of these tasks, it can be really overwhelming, and so we do separate training for that as well. First testing season, that'll be coming up for us very soon. The first time, especially for brand new teachers who haven't worked in a brick and mortar or any other kind of school before, that can be a very daunting task. And of course, their first terrible day. And we've had a few of those this year. And one of the things I love about being in the training and support role is that I'm not really the boss. And so when a really bad day comes along, they can come to me first, and we can talk it out first before we have to ever take things up to another level or anything. It really helps to have somebody there who can just kind of be just a shoulder to cry on, almost literally sometimes. And so that is part of what I consider to be training and support as well, learning how to deal with those emotional situations that come up in the classroom, dealing with families. Right, Heather, and I've had my share as well. I mean, and so knowing how to deal with that is very important as well. And so for these reasons, our teachers, I consider them in training their entire first year. Oh yeah, after the first month or two, the whole year long, as needed. But really, I think you always have to be reaching out, even if you don't hear from a teacher for a while. You got to check in. You got to see how things are going. So I got another little interactive task for you here. If you've worked with training, what's the most common phrase you hear from a new hire? I know it's kind of similar to what we talked before, but I'm more so than how the last one focused on advice. What do you hear from them about their emotional state? Or if you're a teacher, what do you remember just thinking about the job? So not so much what would you tell a new teacher, but how did you feel? Where do I find drowning, overwhelmed, overwhelmed, overwhelmed? Oh my goodness. And I kind of expected to hear some of this. Yeah, how am I going to remember all of this? Lost. Head was going to explode. I can tell you that's how I felt when I started head explosion. These answers are great. I'll give you a little bit of time because I want to see more. What have I done right? I've heard that before as well. What have I gotten myself into? Do I really want to do this job? No, I've heard that. So many different training classes. These are all great answers. I'm going to move on to the next slide, but thank you so much for your input. Well, I guess you won't be too surprised to hear that our school is also a variation on I'm overwhelmed. So how do we deal with that? How do we address that? This feeling of being overwhelmed. I've found that it stems a lot from a deeper sense of isolation, the idea that you have to figure out how to do things on your own. And I say not on my watch. If there's one thing that I really try to focus on and emphasize, it's that you are not alone. So the primary purpose of my training program at this point is to fully integrate our new teacher into our school. And the number one way to do this, build strong relationships starting on day one. The stronger the relationships, the lesser the feeling of isolation and being overwhelmed. One of the keys that our teachers taught us was asking questions is the key to success. So if you don't have relationships with people, if you feel like you're isolated, you're not going to be, as comfortable asking questions. So I just want to share with you how I deal with this problem. But I do want to ask you as well, how long does it take for a new teacher at your school to be introduced to everyone they need to collaborate with? And this can be just a very quick one. A few days, a few weeks, how long does it take? I mean, if you just had to guess, or maybe you don't know, because it's something that's kind of taken for granted. A lot of teachers that I've talked to wouldn't be able to answer this question because there's not really a timetable. Within 90 days, I saw somebody say. That varies, maybe the whole year. Some schools it's fast, some schools it's not so fast. I'll just tell you a little bit about how I go about it. I try to get it done right away. We have to build strong relationships right away. So the first one that gets built is between myself as the trainer and the new teacher, and that one's right away. But I also try to get the teachers introduced to the staff whom they're going to need to interact with on a daily basis. And I try to do that starting within the first week, wrapping it up within the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, another key aspect of this is getting teachers to meet up with their fellow content teachers, whether it's English, math, whatever subject they're teaching, try to get that done right away as well. And so this is just by way of example, this is how I might do things. First couple of days, they're just going to work with me. It's going to be one-on-one. But sooner rather than later, I like to get teachers into training with people that they're going to be working with on a daily basis. For instance, our compliance liaison, that's the person at our school that deals with attendance. I really want our teachers to learn the process from the point of view of the person they're going to have to be dealing with. So I invite people to my training sessions all the time. I invite staff to my training sessions. If they can make it, great. I really try to work around their schedules and bring them in because I feel like it's really important to have that one-on-one meeting or with myself there to facilitate. We might do more one-on-one trainings together, but starting the next week, I'm going to have them either observe new teachers in their classrooms. They're going to observe their fellow content teachers, learn the job, learn how to teach in Blackboard, but also I like to bring them in, especially if we're in the middle of a quarter transition. We have to set up a new class or something like that. I try to get them to work together. We come into my office and collaborate on how we're going to get this class set up. What can the veteran teachers provide to the new teachers to help them get up and running right away? I want them to meet the rest of our FAST team, family support liaisons. And so I break it up kind of in this way. It's not always exactly like this, but there's kind of a trade-off, kind of a back and forth. I'll work with them a couple days, then we'll bring in somebody else. I'm usually there for most of these meetings as well, just to facilitate, it's nothing else. But I find that building those strong relationships in the first couple of weeks, our teachers get so much more comfortable just reaching out, asking questions, taking care of various tasks, and they'll come to need me less and less, although I'm always still there to provide ongoing support, which I'm going to talk about next. So I'm both a training and support teacher. And my school director described my support role as fast for teachers. And why not? Okay, think about all the resources our students have. I know at our school, I mean, they have not only their academic support and FAST team, but they have special education teachers. They have their homeroom teacher. They have others to help them succeed. There are all kinds of people who will come together to work, the administrators, the content teachers, they're all going to come together and work with kids. But who's going to support the teachers? At our school, they can have anywhere between 20 and 40 families to support, right? And so who's going to support the one doing the supporting? Because the homeroom teacher is often the point of contact. It all falls on them first. And they have to keep track. Right, the lead teacher does not always have time to help. Exactly. And so that is where I come in, and that's what I'm going to talk about. I wanted to just see, though, again, this can be a quick yes or no. If you want to change it to just a green check. Oh, wow, so yeah, some schools, I know, I've heard that the homerooms can get much bigger. So, yeah, if you guys just want to yes or no in the chat box, it'd be fine, or you can use green check or red X. I am very curious to know if your school has a teacher. I'm seeing a lot of no's. I'm seeing a lot of no's. Okay. I'll give you, I saw an I don't know, and so I almost want to say that almost counts as a no. Define intervention program. I will be well, I'll define our intervention program, and I'll tell you how I would. Okay, I'll define it in general terms. Just as we have for the students at our school, we call it back on track plan. Right? We look at the students who are failing their courses. We set up a plan for them to succeed, and usually that plan is kind of a breakdown, what assignments need to be completed to get to a certain goal. And so I'm doing something very similar for teachers right now, and I'm going to show you what I do. And again, it's a very simple idea, so it probably won't knock your socks off, but it's just something I started with. I call it the teacher intervention plan. TIP, nice acronym. So just as students get the Back on Track plan, like I just mentioned, I like our teachers to have some sort of a Back on Track plan as well, although I call it the teacher intervention plan. I call it a collaborative plan because it's not just some document that I send out and I expect it to be fulfilled. This is, I've been using online, Word Online. It's collaborative. We fill it out together. We work on it together. We have, we each have a link. We can go into it at any time. And the way that I started out is I have a status column. Of course, we have all the students' names, but I have a status column, right? And this, what I put in the status column is the results of just a conversation. Just have a conversation, and just the conversation alone can do wonders. Talk about each student. I can't tell you the relief I've heard just from some of our teachers, just being able to go down the list with somebody and talk about each one of the students on their caseload and the specific issues and challenges that they're having. And we get this down into writing. And I'm going to show you an example on the next page. But then we want to talk about what is the plan of action. How do we get them back on track? How do we, it's not only getting the teacher back on track, but we're getting the students back on track. What do we need to do with each one of these families? Who do we need to contact? Do we need to bring in additional staff? And the idea here is just to be as specific as possible and list out step by step what is going to be done. Now, over here in the report column, we leave this blank. And like I said, it's a collaborative document, so the teacher comes back later on. I also, sometimes, I will take some of the students. I might be offered to make some calls myself or to reach out myself. And we will fill in this third column over the course of the week. And so let me just show you an example. We had to get our master agreement signed, that document that all families need to get signed in order to be enrolled at the school. I'm sure they call it something different at different schools, but we have 4 quarters. We have new students coming in, quarter transitions, and every batch of new students, we have to get these documents signed. And for a couple of teachers, challenging areas, challenging demographics, and the documents just weren't coming in. And so, right, and that is the idea. Mandy, thank you for that comment. I think that this does make it positive because we break it down and we take it one at a time. I have a conversation with the teacher about each student. And what you see here, this was kind of an early one. The notes are much more detailed now as I've been working on this more with more teachers. We've been filling in a lot more information. But the idea here, and we were in kind of a time crunch too, was just to figure out what's the problem. Just identify the problem, let's figure it out, and then what are we going to do? And so you'll see that I took some of these students. I said I would call. We had the teacher do the other halves of the calls. We had our lead teacher involved as well. And we were updating this column here throughout the day. Did we make contact? Or if we couldn't make contact, do we need to get them through the withdrawal process? The idea is just to get a result, just to have forward movement. We got to have something here, right, by the end of the day or the end of the week. And then we can decide if a new plan is needed later on. And so this is a very simple method that I used to really try to get all those agreements signed, or at least get the family on their way through the referral process. I'm happy to say that it worked. Just a very simple step-by-step approach. We were able to get everything signed, or we were able to move students along. And I think really, even in thinking more in the long term, the teachers were able to learn a new way of simplifying many overlapping challenges, focus on one student at a time, and reach their goals of making sure that all their kids were up to date in their documentation. Okay, I know we're kind of running short on time, so I'm going to skip the teacher survey. And what I really wanted to do, and I want to make sure we have time for, is to know what you do at your school that's effective as well. And some of you have already mentioned certain things, but I'd like to spend the next couple minutes, if you want to add any specific details to the whiteboard. I would love to learn from you, and I would love to know if you have an intervention program at your school. I would love to know, like, what do you think the key idea is, or the key piece of technology? New teachers paired with a mentor. That's great. Bi-weekly check-ins. I'd like to know more about that. Like, what exactly do you check for? Weekly pulse check. Okay. Oh, Google Hangouts. I like that. Right, and I know all of our teachers have DDI conferences, right, where they meet with their lead teachers. That's great that you have there's mentoring programs as well, and that's something we want to work in more too, although it's not always possible. And so I kind of serve as the default mentor for everybody at our school. I see here mentor is great at first, but then slacks off. Right, and that's why it's great at our school that we have myself. I'm there all the time. I'm on call all day. I see. Okay, I see that somebody has mentioned Skype, and I wanted to mention Skype as well. Skype is fantastic for instant messaging, and I'm on there all day, and teachers can reach me on Skype any day. I mean, of course, they can call or email as well, but if your school isn't using Skype yet, I'd strongly recommend getting everyone on Skype Instant Message because that has been one of the most efficient ways that I've had to communicate with our teachers and support them. And you can do, yes, you can do presentations on Skype as well. Some kind of instant messaging system, I find, is just so important. Okay, there's a lot of great ideas here. Right, Skype for Business. I saw a question. What's my suggestion for redirecting those who are just not getting it? So, Ginny, my suggestion for that is to always, my first suggestion is to bring in more people. If I alone am not successful at explaining something, I in turn rely on others for support. So to me, it's all about collaboration. It's all about teamwork. It's all about bringing in more people. Usually it's not necessary, but if it is necessary, I love to get as many people together as possible and tackle a problem together. Well, good. I am going to save all of this right now. Thank you so much for providing all of these ideas. Fantastic stuff. Well, good. Yeah, and I've heard this story many times. Overwhelmed at first, and as long as you've got a great support staff, that's really what you need. And then as far as the teacher intervention program, I think it can be really useful for boosting a teacher's confidence and self-esteem, and having someone who's not their immediate supervisor work with them one-on-one. Not a co-teacher, not a supervisor, but just a trainer. Just someone there to support. It's kind of a neutral role, and I think it's really helped put people at ease. You can look at my Dropbox. You can see all of the responses that our teachers have given to the questions of what kind of advice they would give. You might find it useful. A template for the teacher intervention program. Manual that I created for our use of the OHS, because updating materials is important. I made it from scratch, just if you want to check it out. And here's my contact information. And if anybody would like to contact me, talk about ways to support teachers, my intervention program, anything like that, please feel free to take it down. And thank you all so much for joining me today. I'll take any questions, anybody who wants to stick around. Okay, what K-12 resources do you find that you can use to support new teachers? Well, of course we have them do all of the new teacher training, and of course I was hoping that they would come today to the NPD, because I feel like these sessions they helped me a lot when I was new. I'm always on the K-12 website though, looking for the latest guides, the latest updates, and I just kind of as needed will send them out. So it's just a question for me of checking back every so often, keeping my eye on the updates, making sure that my teachers are completing those new trainings, and you know, just making sure that that process is going forward. Okay, I guess my time is up, so thanks again, everyone.
And as you log out, remember your attendance survey will pop up, and you only need to fill that out once today.
Thank you.